We are just 2 nights away from the 2021 edition of AEW Full Gear, which will be live from the Target Center in Minneapolis, Minnesota. The show will see 3 championship matches, including the long-awaited bout between Hangman Page and Kenny Omega, this time with the AEW World Championship on the line. As always with AEW pay-per-views, today I'll be running through what I think will go down this weekend, so let's not waste any more time and look at my AEW Full Gear 2021 predictions. And if you are planning on watching the pay-per-view this weekend, make sure you do so by using our Fight affiliate link in the description below, where international viewers can watch it for just $19.99. So we start with the only pre-show match that's been announced so far, that being the duo of Nyla Rose and Jamie Hayter taking on Thunder Rosa and Hikaru Shida in tag team action. We'll keep this one short, but for the buy-in shows I often just go with the babyface victory, so in this case that would be a win for Thunder Rosa and Shida, with this getting the crowd pumped for the main show. Now let's start with the main show matches with the AEW World Title Eliminator Tournament Final, where Bryan Danielson takes on God's favourite former champion Miro to decide who will be the #1 contender for the AEW World Championship. Bryan has fought his way through 2 opponents to get to this point, defeating both Dustin Rhodes and Eddie Kingston on his route to the final. As for Miro, he would replace Jon Moxley in the semi-finals, meaning to get to this point he's only had to beat 1 opponent, that being Orange Cassidy. This one is tough to call, although on the surface it seems like a way for AEW to bypass the ranking system to set up a Bryan Danielson versus Kenny Omega rematch, this time for the title. As we know, the 2 men met in a non-title match at Grand Slam, which ended in a time limit draw, with Bryan laying out his intentions to get his hands on Omega, this time with the belt on the line. That said, I'm extremely torn over the main event, a situation I'll elaborate on later in the video. For now though, I am going to go with a Bryan Danielson win, setting up a match with either Kenny Omega or Hangman Page somewhere down the line. Next we go to a 10-man Minneapolis street fight, this time between the reunited Inner Circle and Dan Lambert's American Top Team. Following Sammy Guevara's win over Ethan Page in the TNT title match, the Inner Circle were allowed to choose which members of the MMA group would compete, and they would pick the team of Ethan Page and Scorpio Sky, as well as 2 former UFC heavyweight champions Junior Dos Santos and Andrei Arlovski. And joining them, surprisingly, is Dan Lambert, who is the mouthpiece of the group. As for a prediction, I'll be going with an Inner Circle win for this one, with Lambert likely taking the fall with Chris Jericho getting even with him. This would also keep the rest of the group strong by having the non-wrestler lose the match for them. This was made even more obvious by the beatdown at the hands of American Top Team last night on Dynamite, with the Inner Circle likely set to get their revenge. Elsewhere on the card, 2 pillars of All Elite Wrestling are set to clash as MJF and Darby Allin will go one-on-one for the first time in their AEW careers. This feud got very personal very quickly, as MJF has attempted to get inside the head of his resistant opponent. He's attacked Darby's mentor Sting, as well as poked fun at his character-defining car crash, which saw Allin's drunken uncle die, with a young Darby Allin walking away with mental scars. As always with MJF's matches, it's difficult to see him losing unless there's some kind of built-in excuse, such as the match restart at the last pay-per-view in his match with Chris Jericho. With that in mind, I still see MJF winning this one due to underhanded tactics, perhaps with the help of the Pinnacle or the precious Dynamite Diamond Ring. Now we go to a 6-man tag match as Adam Cole and the Young Bucks, collectively known as the Super Clique, will take on rivals Jungle Boy, Luchasaurus and Christian Cage, as we appear to be heading closer to an official Trios division. If an AEW Trios title was to be introduced, which has been teased and reported multiple times, you have to say that the likely holders will be the Super Clique. Whilst it's unclear when the belts will be introduced, I'm gonna go for a win for Cole and the Bucks, which positions them as the elite of the potential Trios division, no pun intended. Perhaps this match could lead to the EVPs putting the belts on themselves, or maybe we even get an announcement before the match that the titles will be on the line. Whether that happens or not remains to be seen, but either way, the Super Clique should win this one. Next we have the second standard tag team match of the night, as the divisive Cody Rhodes teams with Pac to take on Malachi Black and Andrade El Idolo. With a seemingly impending Cody heel turn on the horizon despite his insistence of the contrary, this match could well be the catalyst for it, and there's a couple of ways that this could be done. Firstly, you could have Cody's team lose the match before a post-match attack on his partner Pac. Or secondly, you could have Cody win the match through illegitimate means such as the use of a weapon. The problem with the latter is it would probably turn Andrade and Black face in the process, so with that said, I can see Cody and Pac walking away on the losing side before the American Nightmare loses his patience with his partner, leading to the turn. This means, of course, I predict a win for Malachi Black and Andrade, although I wouldn't be surprised if the turn is stubbornly held off even further, or Cody's insistence of being a good guy leading to more heat than an actual turn would, similarly to the John Cena effect. Next we have another tag team match, this time with the AEW tag team titles on the line. This is a rematch from a few weeks ago where FTR would defeat Penta and Phoenix for the AAA World Tag titles, albeit under a luchador disguise. With that in mind, I think the logical choice would be for the Lucha Brothers to win this time around, with both teams holding on to their own individual championships, especially following the spectacular fashion that the Lucha Brothers would win the AEW tag belts at All Out. I feel it would be too soon for them to drop the AEW straps, so with this one, let's go with a Lucha Brothers win. Next we have a fairly easy prediction as Dr. Britt Baker D.M.D. defends her AEW Women's title against the popular Brazilian judo expert Tai Conti. I say this is an easy prediction due to the feeling that Baker is far from done with her championship reign, with the end nowhere in sight. She's been the standout of the division so far, and I see Conti as just another stepping stone to continue the women's title run of Britt Baker. So yeah, with that said, Britt will win this one. Now we go on to arguably the hottest rivalry on the card, all with a mere 2 weeks of build. CM Punk and Eddie Kingston are set to go one-on-one at the pay-per-view following last week's Rampage face-to-face, which has been dubbed as one of, if not the best promos of the year. A very heated and reality-based storyline sets up a much-anticipated clash between the two men, with Eddie Kingston continuing to show that he can duel with the best on the mic as his late rise to superstardom continues. Saying that, it's unlikely that he'll walk away with the win this weekend, as CM Punk looks set for a long undefeated streak. This feud has brought a much needed edge to Punk for the first time in his AEW run, with him playing the part of a returning legend that's just happy to be here. This match will bring another level of intensity to his game, with the feud having become increasingly personal the closer we get. So as mentioned, for a prediction, I'm going to go with CM Punk, who will face the toughest battle since his return to wrestling. And before we get into the main event of the show, let's go to a non-match prediction, instead taking a look at a potential debut. WWE released Bray Wyatt in late July and his 90-day non-compete clause has now expired. Whilst there hasn't been any leaks or reports about his presence at the show this weekend as of this writing, let's remember that AEW did a great job of keeping the debut of Adam Cole a secret, with fans completely unaware on whether he was showing up at All Out or not. There was speculation, but nothing concrete. Unlike the CM Punk and Bryan Danielson situation, which I feel were deliberately leaked, nobody knew Cole would appear for sure until he walked through the stage. The same goes for the now Wyndham, with the only evidence of him being AEW bound is reported talks between the two parties a few weeks ago, as well as AEW President Tony Khan admitting that he'd be interested in his services should he be available. Could Wyndham be set to debut at AEW Full Gear, the first pay-per-view since he's been a free agent? I do think it's possible, and I'd lean towards it happening, therefore I'll add it in as one of my predictions. And now we get to the main event of the show, as Hangman Page finally gets his shot at the AEW World Champion Kenny Omega, a story that has been bubbling since the inception of the promotion. Hangman would main event the first ever All Out pay-per-view, coming up short to eventual winner Chris Jericho. He would then join up with fellow Elite member Kenny Omega to win the AEW Tag Team titles, which planted the seeds for this weekend, and we know how the rest of the story went. If you ask any AEW fan, they'd tell you that Hangman Page will be the next AEW World Champion, and if you asked me 3 months ago, I would have agreed. One little thing that has me questioning this is the introduction of Bryan Danielson to the roster, who I feel is now going to be the one to dethrone Omega. This has been the hardest prediction I've done on the channel, and I'm extremely torn, but in terms of an official prediction, I think I'm going to have to go with Kenny Omega. I've gone back and forth over a Miro Eliminator Tournament win and a Hangman victory, or a Bryan tournament win and an Omega victory, and I think it will be one or the other. But as a fan, do I want Hangman to win? Yes, but do I think he will? Probably not. And I think that will make it even more exciting if he does. And before you go, make sure you check out my video where I discuss what could be next for the WWE releases of November 2021, including Keith Lee and Ember Moon.